Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and this is going to be the first in a series of videos just showing a mix of HTML and CSS and how to build cool parts of a website, in a sense. So let's just talk about what HTML and CSS is, but this is going to be more like application, like how to build a nav bar, how to build a hero image, um, stuff like that. So in this first video, we're going to just sketch out the boilerplate for our project and build a nav. So first, let's create a folder. Over here in Wizard Journey, new folder. Um, let's call it. We'll call it mock portfolio. Okay, I'm gonna make a mock portfolio because I've already made a portfolio website, but we'll make it again. And we'll need an index.html. And I'm going to want a new file, style.css. Save. Well, it's already there. So next I want to do is go into my HTML, put in my boilerplate. Okay, Alex Merced's portfolio in the title tag. Okay, and we are going to then put in my link tag that links my CSS file. There we go, and automatically chooses style.css. That works for me. Cool. Now, generally what I like to do, I like to use the semantic tags. At the end of the day, what really all that matters is knowing which tags are blocks and which tags are inline tags. Okay, because basically which styles you're going to want to choose along the way are all based on whether it's inline content, meaning it's like text in a paragraph, or is it a block, which means it's a whole paragraph that gets its own like block. And we'll kind of show you that along the way. But I always like to use my three semantic tags, which is header. Okay, these basically are glorified divs. They're blocks. Main. Okay. And footer. Cool. I just like to have that there. It's set up. Save. And now what I'm going to do is in my header, we're going to build a nav. So I'm going to use a nav tag, which is just also a block element. It's just a glorified div. It's just, again, for semantic, it just makes it easier to look at the code and see kind of what I'm trying to do here. Here's I'm building my nav. Now, what a lot of people do when they build their nav is they'll use like a UL and then do a bunch of LI tags, because LI tags are block elements. I prefer using divs because then I don't have to worry about things like getting rid of those dashes in the list and other UL specific things. So I'll usually just do all my A tags like this. So again, A tags are just links, so href. I'm not going to put in URLs right now. Okay. So we'll just pretend like this is my link to GitHub. And we'll just do a few of these. See GitHub, my profile on npm, my blog, and my YouTube. Okay, cool. Save. Okay. Let's open this up in the browser so we can see what we have so far before we style it. Open containing folder. And then let's open this up in the browser. Okay, and see basically, if you hit like Control-Shift-I, or you can just actually just right-click and then here and choose Inspect the page. This will bring up the dev tools here. So you can kind of see the breakdown of the page here. So cool. And just so you can see these are block tags. So see the header's this whole block. Inside the header, there's a nav block, which is pretty much the same block. And then inside of it, I have all these little mini blocks, divs. Each div is a block. By default, the block takes up 100% width. And basically it's just the height of the content in the block. That's just the default. And blocks by default stack on top of each other. Okay, cool. So that's good to know. But how do we make this like a nice nav? And actually, I'm going to want the title to this page too. So let me go over here and then let's add an H1. Alex Merced's. Actually, no, I don't want that in the nav. I want that above the nav. So I want that here. H1 Alex Merced's portfolio. Okay, save. So first thing I'm going to do is I generally like everything at 80% width. It's just kind of, I just think it looks better. So what I'm going to do is first thing is I'm going to take the header tag and we're going to say that width is 80%. Okay, width is 80%. And let's test that out. Save. If I go over here, I refresh. Okay, and that didn't seem to take, did it? Let's see here, header. Oh no, it did take. Go see, you can see here, the block's only 80% width, but it's still left aligned. Now the fix to that is margin. So if I want to make sure I center that header block, I need to use margin, because when you're centering blocks, so you always got to be careful. What am I centering, text or block? So since I'm centering the block that is the header, I usually what I'll do is I'll put some margin in there, so like 10 pixels above, 10 pixels below, just to kind of give it space between the next parts, or some breathing room. But the second number represents the left and right margins, which I want to be set on automatic. So 10 pixels auto. With 80%, 10 pixels auto, cool. Nice. And that should fix the block. So if I hit refresh, so you see now the block is centered. So now when I highlight the header block, it's centered. Nice. And you see that little like margin above and below. Okay, cool. But the text is not centered. I would like that Alex Merced's portfolio to be centered. So let's fix that. Okay, so for that, I'll do that with the H1. So I'll just do header H1, and then we'll since I'm not centering the H1 itself. Okay, so the H1 is a block, and the H1 see takes up the whole width of the block. I just want to center the content inside the block. So I'm going to use text align because that'll center or align inline elements. So make that center. Cool. Save. Nice. Okay, now we want to make this nav a little bit nicer. Okay, so first thing I want to do is this nav tag, I want to make that a flex box. Because what flex box does, it takes the boxes inside the box, and instead of stacking them on top of each other, it'll line them up side by side, which is a nicer look. So let's do that. Header H1 nav. No, not header nav. Okay. And that's another reason why I like to use header. So that way I don't have to keep creating too many classes. So instead of using a bunch of divs and a lot of classes, this just, again, it's just a little bit cleaner. It keeps my HTML looking cleaner without too many classes being littered everywhere. Okay. Header nav. And I want the header nav to be display flex. Okay, which will then now line everything up side by side. So all these links should now be side by side. Boop. Cool. But it's still not quite the look that I want. So what I want to do is change its justify content, so that way it spreads them out a little bit nicer. What I like to use is space between. There we go. Space between. Because this way, the two end links are always lined up with the edge of the box. Okay? But then there's still an equal amount of space between. I don't have to figure out what that space is, and it's responsive. So again, so basically as I adjust the screen, see the four links kind of move in with each other. That's nice. Okay. But that still kind of looks ugly at the moment. And I mean, I'm not gonna get into like changing fonts quite yet. Maybe we will. We'll see. So what I'm gonna do is I want to give this box here, this nav box, I want to give it a little padding just to give a little bit more breathing room to all those pads. So padding, I'm going to say 10 pixels is fine. Okay, so padding 10 pixels, and again, this should just give me a little bit more breathing room. Okay, so see, you don't really see it right now because everything's still like basic colors, but you see the nav now, everything has a little bit more breathing room. So now if I make that nav, okay, so we'll just take the background color and make that, oh, I'll just use one of these. Let's do dark blue, and then we'll make the color white. Nice. Oh. Okay, color white. Let's save that. And see what that looks like. Okay, but right now you don't see the color white because the links are still the default styling for that. And on that note, actually, a good practice is to do a little reset here. So what I usually do is I'll set up my root for my variables, which I'm not using yet, but I'll just set that up in case I want it later. And I will also set up an all selector. So this selector here means select everything. And I usually just use this, set the margin for everything to 0, the padding for everything to 0, and I will change border sizing, border sizing, what's the one I'm looking for? Or is it box sizing, I think? Box, yep, box sizing. And then change that to border box. Because what that does is by default, if you add padding or margin, it adds to the width and height of your box. Border box means it includes the width and height of the box. So if I specify a width, it's inclusive of the part of the padding and the margin, which just makes certain things to think through a little bit easier. Okay, so I'll save that. Okay, and then also just as a helpful guide, what I'll do is I'll usually put an outline. So I'll put like 2 picks solid blue. Actually, I usually do solid gold. This just makes a little outline across all the different blocks. So if I do this, see, now I can see where every block element is because it's outlined, and I can just quickly turn it off if I want to see it without by going right over here and just toggling it on and off. And then I can just remove the style when I'm done with the website. Okay, so let's fix those fonts. Okay, so let's do header nav div a. Okay, because it just means a nav it's a that's in a div that's in a nav that's in a header. You know, makes it somewhat specific without having to use a bunch of IDs and classes. I only want to use those if I have to. Okay, header nav div a, good. And then we want to change the color of that to white to override that default coloring. I want to get rid of the underlying, so text decoration none. I want to make it all uppercase, so text transform uppercase, and I want to make the font a little bit bigger, so font size, and I'm going to make that 2.5 EMs. Okay, and then EMs, there's M's and then there's REMs. So the way they work is that this is a multiplication of the default font size, which I think is like something like 17 by default. So that's technically what I'm saying here is like 2.5 times 17. EMs refer to, I think it's the global font size, so like the default font size of the document. REMs, relative EMs, refers to the default font size of the container. So if the box that is in has a different font size, it'll work off of that. which can sometimes be good, sometimes be bad, depending if you're keeping track of what your font sizes are in different, because sometimes they can end up compounding on each other, so you always got to be careful. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to save this. Let's take a look at the effect so far. Okay, that's maybe a little too big. Okay, let's take a look what happens when I take that out. Okay, I guess that works for now. It's not the best. I might want to change the spacing. I might use space around. So in this case, instead of space between, I'll use space around, so that was there's equal space on both sides of each link. Cool. And let me just take off the outline, take a look. That's a little bit better. Now what I may do, just to kind of break them up a little bit, is I might actually create a little space between each of these divs, because right now each of these divs are right up against each other. So what I'm going to do is create another style for header, nav, div, and we'll just say margin. I'm fine with no margin top and bottom, but I do want about, let's say, yeah, 10 pixels. I have to say 5 pixels left and right. Let's just see how that, the effect. Quite have the effect that I wanted. That's because the divs are far apart from each other. It's not the divs that it's the block. Okay, so for me to fix that, I'd have to go back and then change the color of the divs versus the block. I'll keep it that way. But what I do want to do is give this a nice little hover effect. So what I will do, and then I want to make sure that it kind of has a nice effect. So I'm going to add a transition. So transition, and what I want to say is that I want there to be a transition effect whenever the color of the font changes. Okay, which will be 0.2 seconds. Usually 0.2 to 0.4 seconds tends to be kind of a nice sweet spot. Anything over that tends to kind of go long and look like a really funky transition. And background color. Background color. And that'll be 0.2 seconds. Cool. Okay. Because you can put in like different properties and it'll pay attention to those properties. But let me actually add background color here. Background color, dark blue. The only reason is because I wanted to start from another color. Right now, it doesn't have a background color. It looks like it's dark blue because the nav tag, this nav is dark blue. But technically the divs aren't. So visually, it makes no difference. But for the effect I want to have, it will, because it has to start with some sort of background color to transition. So now I can create the transition effect. I go to header, nav, div, a, and add the hover pseudo selector. And I'm going to say, hey, when you hover over it, change the color to pink. Why not? And then change the background color. Actually, no, because usually I like to swap the colors. So this will be, the background color will be white. And then this will be dark blue. Save. So now, let's refresh. Now if I hover over it, so I get this nice little effect. Okay, and I can make it, maybe make it a little bit slower. So let's make it 0.4 seconds. Give it a little bit more, drag it out just a little bit more. So, yeah, that gives you a nice little transition. That's nice. Okay, and then that's kind of the basics of doing a very basic nav. I probably want to do some more padding on the H1. So let's fix the title, because it's kind of making the other stuff look not as pretty. So let's do some margin. I'll just use a set 10 pixels. That should probably give me just a little breathing space. Always helps. Yep, that looks a little bit nicer. Okay. Yeah, I mean, these letters are a little big, but... And again, changing the fonts would make this look a little bit nicer. And probably changing the font color of this, making the color of the header match the background. So dark blue just keeps the colors more consistent, which will help the overall look. There we go. That's moving in the right direction. And why not? Let's do some fonts real quick. So we'll just go to fonts.google.com. I think I meant fonts.google.com. Okay, and I'll just choose some basic fonts. So Roboto is always a good choice. Oh, no, I didn't want to go to the Roboto page. I just want to add it. Where's the little add button? Are they going to make this hard now? Okay, I guess I don't want to make this easy anymore. So we'll just choose a font. I'm going to choose a really... Well, I'll choose this one. Select the style. It adds it to my little thing over here. Okay. And let me just go back to another font. I want something for the title. Usually if you're going to use a more decorative font, then use that for the title. Something that's easy to read, you want for like your normal text. So, you know, let me find something that's a little bit more decorative for the title. Something a little bit more, there we go, like Anton works. And generally you don't want to have more than like 2, at best 3 fonts for like, if you want a third font for like other subtitles. But generally 2 fonts is enough. One that's kind of a decorative title font, and then you're just sort of very readable general text font. Okay, oh, let me first add this. About Anton, where do I add? Select styles, here we go. Oh, here's just one. There we go. Let's get the embed code. So I'm going to use the @import. So that way, instead of putting it in my HTML, I just put it in my CSS. So I'll just go here, put this at the top of my CSS. There we go. And then what I am going to do is Roboto is going to be our main font, our body font. So I'm going to create some variables. So main font is this. And then we're going to have our title font, which will be this. Save. Okay, and I just want that there. Because basically what the variables do is you just save the value. So save. And then what I'm going to do is I want to generally change most things to Roboto. So I'm going to go to my body and say font family. And then we're going to use a variable var main font. And then all my H1s, or all my H's, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6, I want them all to use font family. I want them to all to use var title font. Cool. And then I shouldn't have to worry about fonts anymore. Let's go back to our website, do a quick change. Okay, and see that's starting to give it a little bit more personality, a little bit more life. Just get rid of the outline. Okay, so that's a start. Now we'll keep building out other sections of the website, like a hero image. I'll do that in the next video, and we'll just kind of keep just working our way down on this page. But yeah, that's just generally a basic navigation, nothing super fancy, but it does the job. Okay. Um, Again, I could probably choose a better font. Maybe this should be a little bit bigger. But again, the width, giving the white space works. Generally, just a nice white background with just a splash of color does all the trick. You don't need to have a lot of colors. Oftentimes, you don't even need to have a lot of borders. Just white. Choose one or two colors to put on top of the white, and it's generally always going to give you sort of a clean, acceptable look. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Ciao.